Hello, everybody. My name is Maurice Button. I'm the CEO of City and Financial Global, and I'd like to welcome you to the latest in our series of speaker interviews. Today, we're delighted to have with us Sue Armstrong-Brown, who's the Global Director of Environmental Impact and Thought Leadership at CDP. And Sue will be speaking at the Natural Capital Summit on the 13th of November in London. So, Sue, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Our pleasure entirely. Let's go to the first question. How much progress has been made in disclosing and addressing nature-related issues to date?
Well, as you probably know, the world started paying attention to disclosure in the realm of climate, and CDP pioneered that 20 years ago now. But fairly quickly after that, it became apparent that climate wasn't the whole story, and we needed to open up disclosure channels to those disclosing on nature-related issues as well. So we have been inviting disclosure for the last decade on water and forest issues, as well as climate. And in the last year, we piloted our first biodiversity questions too. The numbers are behind those on climate, which had a head start, but we are seeing quite steep rises in disclosure numbers for nature-related issues. In fact, we've just released our 2023 disclosure numbers after the cycle closed. And we're really pleased to see a big increase with nearly 5,000 companies disclosing on water security, which is a 23% increase, and 1,200 disclosing on forest, which is more than a 10% increase. So we're seeing numbers starting from a fairly low base, but growing very rapidly.
Very good. I mean, that sounds quite promising. But of course, there are a number of different frameworks that are available to companies. Obviously, yours, the CDP's one, is extremely well known. There's the work by the TNFD on their disclosure framework, GRI, and a few others. How do the TNFD final recommendations fit with your own disclosure framework?
Yes, actually, that's a really good and very topical point to come onto. So we recently announced that we are going to align with the TNFD recommendations, and it's probably important to take note of the relationship between CDP and our disclosure platform and the various standards and frameworks that exist. So CDP provides a disclosure platform and system for companies and financial institutions and city-states and regions to use, but we aren't the standard setters or the framework setters. What we do is we align our questions with the best practice external standards and frameworks that we can identify. And that's why we announced our intention to align with the TNFD recommendations. What we will be able to do is offer a platform to accelerate the implementation of the framework for nature-related financial disclosures across the global economy.
So moving on from the frameworks which are used, I suppose at the coal face, companies face a challenge in the sorts of standards and metrics and tools available to manage and measure their impact on nature. And how are these developing? You know, when companies look at it and they want the tools to actually manage and measure what they're doing, what sort of tools are available to them?
There's quite a wide range of different tools to use, and actually that's almost a problem because there's quite a lot of different options, and we are not currently seeing standardization across the different tools. So that's just part of the maturity of nature-related disclosure, that there's lots of different things in the mix and being developed as people try to identify the gaps and then to provide the tools to fill them. And we've seen a divergence in the array of different options available. I do think we'll start seeing more and more harmonization and standardization as different initiatives come together and work together and develop more interoperability. But for the moment, the landscape is fairly confused, and that's partly why CDP is putting quite a lot of emphasis on alignment with the best practice. One of the things to point to is some of the key standards which we're aligned with, including the GRI standards, the CEO water mandate, and the accountability framework initiative. So with a bit of research, disclosures can identify the right one for them and ensure that it is aligned. There's also provision that the TNFD has made themselves, for example, the LEAP guidance, LEAP
Yes.
standing for Locate, Evaluate, Assess and Plan, which ends with disclosure as the last step. And following that kind of guidance can be very, very helpful in enabling companies to start accessing the tools and the guidance that they need to do their own disclosures.
Yeah, so eventually convergence will lead to widespread adoption of best standards, we hope. My final question, if I may, because time is running a little short. I've heard it said that dealing with nature-related impacts is way more complicated than dealing with climate-related impacts, I guess within the measurements and so on. What do you think the main challenges are in nature impact reporting and disclosures rather than climate-related disclosure and reporting?
That's absolutely true. There is much more complexity involved in nature-related disclosure, and it wasn't that climate was simple at all, as we all know. But at least we had one measure of CO2 equivalents that we could rely on, and one atmosphere that we are discharging our greenhouse gases into. So at least we had that point of simplicity. When it comes to nature, there's two main things to consider. One is the multi-dimensional nature of it. There's multiple realms, there's different aspects of it, they interact, you have transboundary components. It's very complex. And the second one is, of course, that the context changes everything. An impact in one place or an action in one place can be quite different in terms of its importance for nature or its materiality for the business compared to the same activity in another place. And a great example there is water abstractions. In a water scarce area, they're highly impactful and actually quite risky for the company. In a water rich area, they're completely different. And so we see that repeated across the whole realm of nature related disclosure.
Yeah, so a complex environment, but it seems to me that overall, the speed with which, say, the TNFD final recommendations have come into being from the inception of the TNFD, your adaptation of your framework, the convergence of tools, it seems to be a faster process than it was for climate change. Do you think that's true?
Yes, one of the advantages is in terms of nature-related disclosure is we've got a lot of groundwork already established for climate. So, for example, the TNFD has been able to align with the structure of the TCFD, which stands for Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosure, and build on that. So that's a fantastic opportunity actually to accelerate the development of nature-related disclosure. And other things are corporates are already mainstreaming climate-related disclosure, and those who have been disclosing on water and forests are mainstreaming it for those areas too. So we aren't starting from zero for nature. We are able to build on what's already gone before.
Fantastic. Well, that's a positive note on which to end this interview. For our viewers, if you'd like to hear more about these issues and related issues, please do attend in person our event at the Natural Capital Summit on the 13th of November in London. Just remains for me to say, Sue, thank you very much for sharing those insights today.
My pleasure. Looking forward to speaking in November.